All right. Hey, everybody. We are at Sticks Out podcast number 12 with Cassie McKenney. Hey, Cassie. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Good to see you.
Yeah, it looks really bright over there, huh?
Yeah, sunny Mexico.
So why don't we get a little bit of your story? Who are you? Where are you from originally? And how did you find yourself where you're located now?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and spent my first 20 years outside of Baltimore, and was really into live music and like kind of book lifestyle, like traveling around, going to see bands, making jewelry by hand, and selling it to go see bands while ignoring my college education, basically. And once I graduated college, I don't know how I did that. And sorry if I switch into Spanish sometimes. It's kind of fight in my brain right now between English and Spanish, but I moved to Florida to be with some family after I graduated college, and there I continued going to see live music and found some hula hoopers that sorry, Noel, I don't know if we need to start this again, but my dog is like crying, and I want to put him in the other room so you don't hear him crying.
How long is that going to take?
Huh?
Well, go ahead, do it now, quick.
Yeah.
We'll pause.
Come on.
Yeah. So here we are staring at a Mexican couch, and it appears that there's a towel on the couch in case so the dog doesn't ruin it. In addition, it appears they have yellow paint in Mexico. In addition, clearly better lighting than my house.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's back. Okay. All right. So you moved to Florida. Then what happened?
Okay, so I moved to Florida, continued seeing live bands, and through that venue of live music was introduced to hula hooping. And at first I thought it looked really stupid and was like, oh, I would never do that. And I met a friend who was actually super talented and really engaging and fun to watch with the hula hoop. So I asked her to start teaching me, and that was a great way to build my friendship with her and start being active in my body again, which felt really good. But unfortunately, she got a little jealous of me practicing a lot and got kind of down on herself about it. Was like, oh, I just want to quit. And so to kind of change that problem, I picked up a second hoop and started learning how to do things with two hoops so that she couldn't compare herself to me. And she doesn't actually hula hoop anymore, but from two hoops I went on to three hoops, and then heard of this place called the Vulcan in the Bay Area and moved there so that I could immerse myself into spinning and circus and surround myself with people who were levels better than me, to inspire me, to push me, kind of break me down, to build me up kind of situation. And through living at the Vulcan and the people that I met there and the practice and the dedication that I cultivated there, I sort of built my whole life around circus and hula hoops. Now I live in Mexico, and I'm working as a juggler, as a performer here. There's more opportunities here for circus. People tend to take circus more seriously here, so there's more opportunities to work, and things are a little bit more cheap here, so I can take that money that I make with juggling and circus and still live and still have time to train, which I didn't in the States.
And to own a dog, apparently.
Yeah, and I have a dog.
So hooping is the main prop or the only prop you've ever done thus far?
Yeah, I have, almost 9 years now with hula hoops, and I've been around a lot of poi spinners, a lot of staff spinners, around all of the props, and I've never been called to anything else. Like I like watching other people do things, and I respect the time and the effort that it takes, and I think it's beautiful, but I've just never been called to do anything else. And I feel like there's so much to learn with hula hoops that learning other things, obviously cross training is valuable, but I felt like that was detrimental. It would take away from the things that I wanted to accomplish and the things I wanted to learn with hoops.
So you're in Mexico. What's one of the biggest differences about being in America and Mexico in terms of circus flow and juggling and whatever else? Like, what are some differences that you noticed in your first year, right? Year and a half you're there now?
Yeah, I've been here almost like a year and 3 months now. I think the biggest difference that I've noticed, not even just in the juggling community, just in people here in general, which transfers into the circus world here, is that people are more open and trusting to new people here immediately. They trust you and they want to be your friend immediately. And then if you do something to prove to them that you're not worth it, then okay, they'll put the distance. But in America, it was like people have this wall. They have a little bit of distance, a little bit of space between them and new people until you show them that you have something to offer them or that you're trustworthy or honest or whatever it is that they like about you. But here, people are more open, more warm, and I found that in the juggling and spinning community here that people are really, really excited to welcome new people in, and there's less. I feel less kind of less competition, less of an edge here than I did in the States.
Is flow and juggling more integrated there in Mexico, or do you think
No.
It's as separate?
No, it's super separate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And so, how much is a juggling community? So there's this street light performing thing that is a Latin America norm, it seems, in many places. Is that scene like really affiliated with the juggling and circus scene, or is that like a totally separate thing? Is there like a professional like how does that work?
I have only tried performing at streetlights a couple times, and it's a whole different world. I feel like because it's illegal to do in the States, it's such a novel thing. I feel like it's something I would much rather see someone performing at a streetlight with juggling balls or a hula hoop than have someone with a sign telling me their life problems. You know, I know that's kind of a dick thing to say, but I'd rather give that person money. And here it's like accepted. They see someone doing something and they give them some money. And you'll see people with a baby on their back at the streetlight juggling knives. And it's just like, it's cool. It's just kind of like another job. But I think that it's not seen as like a professional thing. It's something people do when they need money. And if they have a job where they're gaining money other ways, you won't see them at a streetlight. And my biggest thing why I don't want to be out at a streetlight is because you're sitting in the middle of car exhaust for hours and hours, and it's just not super healthy. And living here in Mexico City, it's like the pollution's crazy here, and so it's something like 15 cigarettes, the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day just living here. So
wow.
Standing streetlight is just adding insult to injury at that point. But definitely it's respected, but it's not something you do if you have another job, you know.
So is there like a history? Have you gotten into any of the history of circus in Mexico? I mean, like, do you know anything about that? Does it go?
A little bit. There's a company here called Circus Ataide, and it's a
How
family
do you
name.
spell it?
Ataide, Ataide, Ataide. And they've been doing shows in Mexico. It's a family circus, and they've been doing shows in Mexico since the early 1900s. I think maybe even sooner. I'm not sure the exact date, but at least since like 1910, I've seen pictures of their shows. And they had a big tent in Mexico City up until like 2 months ago. They took down the tent because they're not doing well.
Oh wow!
So now
Crazy.
they're moving to more seasonal, and like they have a youth circus that they're traveling around Mexico, and they have a smaller tent where they're doing more like seasons and less a thing that's there all the time. And it's the first time they've moved that tent in like 70 years, so that's kind of a big thing. But yeah, it's super traditional here. It's really respected. It's part of the culture here in Mexico. And people in America, when you tell them you're a juggler, you're either in Cirque du Soleil or you juggle chainsaws are the two references that I get the most. But here it's like, oh, you're a juggler, cool. And there's not like that next question that shows you that this person has zero frame of reference of what you're talking about, or that they're grasping for some sort of context. They know, and it's respected. It's like, oh, okay, cool, that's your job.
So wait, so you've been juggling, you said 8 years, or playing with hoops 8 years?
Yeah,
and
like 9.
So so you're old now, and so
I'm old now, dude.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
you're
old.
totally old. Wait, how old are you? I'm way old.
I'm 33.
Okay, so how did you continually stay motivated to do hoops? Like, I'm just curious now because I think I've seen you always with a hoop, or plural.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, like, over the past 8 years, why have you continued to hoop? Or is it, like, lulled? Because it seems now you're on this, like, just hooping train, when at times, at least as far as I've known you, you've been a rock ornamenter or different sort of little blips, and you've also been a fitness coach, and, like, you know, like, at what, Yeah, how have you stayed motivated to do all this long?
So at first, I was super motivated by other people who were better than me. Like I want to do what they're doing, and I know that it takes time to do what they're doing. So I had to put the time in. That was what kind of started it. And then kind of I started performing, and I was doing my thing with two hoops, and then I met Brian Thompson, and we started performing together, and that's when I kind of really started juggling a lot. And in that time, I was super inspired by him because he's an amazing juggler and was teaching me leaps and bounds on daily basis as we were performing or rehearsing for the flow show, and I was learning tricks just for the act. It wasn't like these are the tricks I know and I'm going to put them in my act. It's like this is the act I want to make, so I need to learn these tricks, which is kind of backwards, but that was really motivating, and he was a big motivating factor for me, really inspiring and really encouraging. And then getting involved with the IJA was kind of a huge factor. Now I'm performing with McKenzie and we perform as Double McJuggle. And when we first met each other, I was really, really focused on my fitness career and getting my certifications as a trainer and as a nutrition coach. And so my practice time was going down a little bit. And then I moved to the same city as her, and we decided we wanted to work together. And that just was an immediate rocket up as far as hours practicing, because we were preparing for IJA and for other shows, and we needed to put the time in. So that was a huge factor. And now, to be honest, I feel I'm performing a lot, but I'm not super motivated to juggle right now. I don't know what it is. I'm just I see other people juggling and I love watching it, and I still love the art, but I don't really feel a whole lot of spark at this moment for juggling.
And so I see that. So you're working on fitness goals instead at this point.
Yeah, I'm focusing on my business.
Wait, stop, rewind. So what is the history of your business? What is this business you're talking about?
Yeah, Ground Up Fitness is my company, and it's a personal training and nutrition coaching company. And what I do is make custom nutrition plans and custom exercise programs for people's lifestyle. So instead of buying a pre-made exercise package or meal plan online, I work with my clients one-on-one with their body goals, with their experiences, their injuries, their allergies, dietary restrictions, whatever it is, to get them to where they want to be.
And so why did you start that? What's the reason for that?
I got really into my own personal fitness. I was smoking a ton of weed at the time, way more weed than any human being should be taking. And
living in Oregon as a high?
No, in California.
Oh, okay.
Vulcan.
Okay, go on.
And so I was going to the gym and feeling good about my activity, but because I was smoking a ton, I was eating really bad and just not paying attention to my health in other ways other than spending that hour in the gym. And I got frustrated with that. So I noticed that I was extremely addicted to sugar, that I had no self-control as far as what I was eating. And so I got really focused in a 12-week period to reframe my relationship with food and really dial in my habits for my fitness. And through that, I was inspired to share with other people because people were asking me questions, wanting to know what I was eating, what I was doing. And it's something that a lot of people want to do but aren't sure how to do it. So it feels really good to be able to share that with people, and it's really rewarding. The same feeling that I get and got from teaching juggling and spinning is really similar, except for I feel like it's more profound because it's something that's allowing someone's longevity to increase, and they're feeling happier in their body and happier with themselves. And all that stuff can come from juggling and spinning, but it's more tangible with fitness.
And what was your degree in college for everybody?
Journalism.
Journalism.
Yeah, I wanted to be the pretty girl on the sidelines of the football field. In high school, I was super obsessed with sports, football, the NFL in general, or more specifically, and wanted to be a sports journalist. And I changed my major 3 years in because I kind of opened my mind a little bit and don't really agree with the NFL now. And I would hate, I can't imagine waking up now and being a part of that organization. I don't know if I could live with myself doing that, but changed my major more towards journalism and communication, and got a job out of college working at an art school that most of the kids there were immigrant families. So I was able to use kind of my degree in communication and international communication with those families, and that's how I kind of linked my education to what I was doing. But now I'm not really doing anything with my college degree except for sitting on debt.
Right. So do you think you'll be in Mexico for the long term? You would suspect.
I really like it here. I want to stay. I need to figure out how to do that exactly, make everything super legit to stay here. But I really like it here. I have a dog. I have an apartment. I live here with Mackenzie, and she's really happy here also. And yeah, it feels good.
Oh, okay. And so you're coming back to the States this year for said Kinetic Fire. Is that true?
Kinetic, UFG, and Equilibrium are the 3 events I'll be in the States this year.
Nice, nice. And so, okay, here's a good question. So you used to get a lot out of festivals, I'm guessing. Let's say like flow events in the States, and you clearly transitioned to being a juggler. Like, what were some of the good things you got out of flow events? Start there. I know flow is a controversial word for you, but I mean, like, what kinds of things did you
Have
get?
you noticed me sidestepping saying it?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, what kind of things do you get out of flow events, or have you gotten out? What positive benefits have you gotten out of flow events in the past?
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, 99.9% of my friends and my network now I met through juggling or spinning, and probably 80% of those people from events that I wouldn't have met otherwise. I've taught all over the country with all the FAI events and with like the IJA, like we were talking about, and other smaller festivals. And every time I go to one of those events, I meet someone new that I want to stay in touch with, and that inspires me in some kind of way, with a trick or with their perspective or their outlook or whatever it is. So that's been really positive. My network has grown a ton from those types of events. My skills in teaching have gotten better. They have to have been after this many years teaching, but I was a teacher before I started juggling and spinning. But this gives me a whole new skill set in teaching people how to do things with their bodies, and that transfers into my training or into my work with personal training. So that's been really valuable. Communication, I've worked through organizational roles with FAI and learning how to work in teams of people with big personalities, learning how to take roles that I might not have chosen otherwise for the greater good of the event or because I care about the success of the event, like sitting at the gate for hours and hours while everyone's having fun at the fire circle or whatever it is, learning how to, know your role and work up to what you want instead of feeling entitled. That's something I've learned through events.
So wait, so what are the negative things you've experienced at these events?
I don't like sleeping in a tent. I don't like having to walk hella far to the bathroom. I don't I don't really drink or do drugs, so sometimes people get a little loose at those events, and I don't really enjoy being a part of that a whole lot. Sometimes there's in those party scenes and festival scenes, there's kind of a lack of consent and lack of awareness that this person that you're talking to or communicating with or playing with is another human. It's not just this party. But I've seen FAI taken a lot of steps to try to address that, and I'm super proud of you guys for doing that and happy that that's something that's happening because it needed to be addressed.
It's 100% Gina. I'm not, well, I'm 2%, but 98% Gina and Maddie. Yeah.
Timbo, all of those dudes, I'm super, super proud of just the organization in general speaking up and doing something. And I know that it's a work in progress and that there's going to be missteps and steps forwards and backwards, but just the fact that it's being acknowledged and worked on publicly is huge.
So wait, is that an issue in Mexico? You can get a lot of catcalling walking around Mexico. I mean, maybe I'm just making some kind of messed up stereotype of my experience in California, but
there's a lot of machismo here. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that catcalling. There's a lot of people. I get stared at constantly, and I know that I look different. And now that my hair's not bright colors, it's a little less, but I look different than most people here, so I get stared at a lot, and I'm not really sure sometimes whether it's just because I look different or because there is that, like, machismo, like, you're in a public space.
Well, how do you look different now? Is it the tattoos, or what's the difference? Are people pretty conservative walking around Mexico City? What's going on? I figured it would, like, be hip.
There's a lot of tattoos here. There's more tattoos on people here than there are in the States, just like the general person, but I have lighter skin. I don't, like, my accent, you know, like, the way I dress, the way I carry myself is just different than people here, I think. And there's, in the metros and in the buses, there's a space just for women and children. Men aren't allowed in there, and that's because in those times, like, where there's people in the metro, there's hella opportunity for violations in all sorts of ways. So.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
There's also a lot of kidnapping here. Like, women get kidnapped all the time here, which is kind of crazy. But, like, everyone thinks Mexico City is a super dangerous city. I have lived in Baltimore and Oakland most of my life, so, like, I'm super sensitive to that. Like, I don't think any city is inherently dangerous. I think that there's places in the cities that are dangerous, but to discount a whole group of people or a whole city because you've heard that it's dangerous or because there's violence there is absolutely ridiculous. So I completely urge people to step outside their comfort zones and, like, be safe about what you do, but don't shut out opportunities or, like, things you would do because you have been told by someone that it's dangerous.
So, all right. I guess that's like fire spinning. But so how did you transition? Like, what is, like, describe your transition from spinner juggler, flow person to juggler. Like, I'm just curious because it seemed as if when I first met you, you were more of a flow goddess type, for lack of a better word. I mean, you had dreadlocks, you had a hula hoop, you know, you were kind of wearing those friggin' juggling hats, you know, like, that's sort of one. But how did you transition, and what was the reason for transitioning more into, say, I'm going to just say it, a juggler? I mean, you described Brian in that process, but what were the reasons for you to transition between
I feel more challenged by toss juggling and by juggling techniques than I ever have with anything with 1, 2, or 3 hoop manipulation. I know that's all a matter of, like, what tricks I decide to learn and what I feel challenged by personally. But the pool of things that I can work on seems infinitely larger with juggling and juggling style and techniques. I felt way more inspiration from juggling than I did from anyone that I was paying attention to or surrounded by in the spinning world. I just saw what they were doing. I was like, I want to do that, versus just seeing it and be like, oh, that's pretty. I don't know. I guess also part of it is, like, juggling is more concrete as something that is respected and has more tradition, has more history, and that shouldn't discount the spinning or juggling world, or spinning or spinning or flow. There we go. I'll just say it, the spinning or flow world. But, like, I don't know. It just feels more legit. It feels more like something that people respect, something that has more of a learning curve that will lead me to something more concrete, something more, like, more success. There's more respect. There's more dedication. There's more institution behind juggling than there is in flow. And that's not inherently bad, but that's what brought me there, I think.
Why do you think that is? I mean, like, is it just because spinning is in its infancy and there hasn't come manipulators? Is it because there's not more objects? I'm just curious, like, why do you think flow sort of apparently has that ceiling? And I have my own guesses, like, for example, the newness or the research, I think a lot of jugglers would call it, with the props themselves is not fully fleshed out in a way that somebody's done it where everyone's like, whoa, you know, it hasn't had that. Some people say there's never been an act of many. Well, that's not true. Baton twirlers, I think, are sort of in they're in that Venn diagram of flow, but they're older. We, like, attach onto baton more. But I'm just curious, why
they would never say that, though. They would never put themselves in that Venn diagram. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, we steal from them, you know. I mean, looking at Staff, like, Staff takes from Fei Cha, Staff take, like, all Dragon Staff, and Staff is much of it is fascia technique and baton technique. I mean, there's very little of it that has actually been created in the past 20 years. I mean, there's probably some, but you know.
I think that I don't know if it's too late to change it or what, if it's even worth it. This is just my deal, but like I feel like if in the earlier stages of manipulation, if people would have been less quick to create their own separate thing and more open or drawn to connecting themselves to this thing that already connects, that already exists and already connects to what you're doing and already has that research and already has that kind of institution, like you said, with baton spinning or whatever, I think that it wouldn't be such a separate thing, and it wouldn't be even a discussion right now, because like hula hoops, poise, staff, batons, all of this stuff that we are playing with as flow artists exists and has tradition and has institution and has discipline, practice techniques, all of that. And I'm not saying that we as manipulators need to do all of that stuff exactly, but it just rubs me the wrong way that we're so intent on being our own separate thing. And I think that's our detriment. That's why people kind of look down on it. That's why we feel so adamant about having our own little festival in the middle of the woods where nobody's watching us and we don't feel judged or whatever it is, because we feel judged because we're a bunch of hippies in the forest spinning fire and patchwork or whatever it is. But like I don't think that those people deserve less respect, but I feel like there would be more respect given if there was more acknowledgement to like where all of this comes from, and more attention paid to practice techniques and dedication mindsets and ways that people look at that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's also hard because I think in juggling, at least insofar as you're going to say that, right, it's more concrete. The skill jumps are clear and they're a little sharper. For example, if you're juggling 3 balls and you can just do a regular cascade, learning the reverse cascade is going to be some effort that is a level up, you know, from where you are. That's require a lot of work. So you're not really feeling like, and this is why I think people like flow or the spinning arts and stuff like that. It's because you feel more creative, right? I mean, the reality of you being creative, that's like a debatable issue, but I think when you step into the world of juggling, you see the next like the next 1,000 levels above you. You're like, I can just juggle a 3-ball cascade. Look at that person doing all sorts of nutty stuff just with 3 balls, and each side of that trick and or throw could be me just practicing for an extremely long period of time, depending. And granted, like, you know, it has these, like, I don't know what you want to call them, sort of like, you learn this trick, you get a bunch more at the same time. Like, you know, you get one thing, a bunch of other things come with, like, you learn side swap, a bunch of things start to come together or whatever. But I think that kind of prevents you feeling creative. You know, that's why I think flow people like that. You know, if you, I mean, this is like, I'm going to advocate because I love juggling a lot and I recognize its skill, but if you can light a thing on fire and feel like a creative force, right? Like, I don't know what else to say. There's like something that's pretty humbling, interestingly enough, and at least in my opinion, even now, you know, like, you know, it's weird when you see someone who spins fire that's better than you and you can juggle 5 balls or something, right? It's like bizarre to think like, wow, what is that? What sauce does that person have? So I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of people that just want to feel creative and want to feel empowered by their creative thing without looking fully outwards. Yes, I don't know.
I completely get that, and I think that's super valuable. Like me, as I think another reason why I gravitated towards juggling is because I don't feel like I'm super creative. Like I feel way more satisfied or fulfilled drilling a trick that I see someone else do and then doing it well than playing with whatever it is for 2 hours and coming up with something that I've never seen anyone else do. And I have complete respect, and like that shit's awesome. That's why I love working with McKenzie, because that girl is super creative and looks at things in a way that I never would have thought of. But like that's just not how I'm wired, I guess, when it comes to hooping. And like, so I find my validation in the drilling and the like, oh, I can do this thing that I saw someone else do, and I would love to be able to like make up new tricks. And I've like a couple of things that I've done that have never seen anyone else do, and I was stoked on it. But I just don't work that way as much, and I think that's another reason why I'm super drawn to that side of it. And I totally respect that need and that feel and that appreciation for creativity. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, like, what makes you feel original? I don't know how to say this, but like, maybe the need to feel creative is not the right word, but what can give you identity when you're just learning things potentially? Much of the things you learn are already set out for you.
Right. That's a tough one, and I've like been confronted with that a lot lately because I've been practicing acrobatics and tricking, and I haven't been new at something in like 8 or 9 years, and so I'm like, okay, I want to still have fun with this thing, and I want to my disciplined like trick oriented side of my brain is getting in the way of like enjoying the process of learning again, because I have this goal and this trick in mind and I want to do it, instead of thinking of how I can do this thing that in the process like me and have fun and be creative in the process. So that's something that I still feel challenged by, and I don't have an answer to that question really, except for like I would love to be able to tap into that side of my brain a little more, but I kind of know how I work and what is satisfying to me in that kind of way, and that's why I feel more satisfied and more fulfilled through juggling and drilling.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there's a person on the other side of that is just the flow god that can walk out in front of any crowd and impress them, right? That can go out there and probably, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting to think about where our own mental blocks prevent us from seeing that other side, right? Like the flow person who's just like really good at spinning and like just can really move between one movement to another, and people change speed, whatever. Like this person probably recognizes that they are not fitting into a slot, like a pachinko slot, right? Like they recognize that they're actually falling into many, but maybe they also desire some structure in their lives, but that's like a vulnerable place for that flow person. Much in the same way as if you were to be out there and to enjoy like the drilling part in front of other people, I guess. So that compares it to would require some vulnerability. Yeah, I could definitely see. It's like taking a dance class often brings those feels out. Like you take a dance class and you don't know any, like the first one ever is just like the weirdest thing of all time. You don't know the people around you. You don't know, like, some people who go in this class know some of the moves from the teacher already, and you're just like behind, you can't understand it. I even find sometimes that like when I do something that puts me in those uncomfort zones, like dance is a good example. I took a modern dance class once, and I wasn't getting tired. Like the first 3 weeks, I wasn't even tired. Everyone else is dripping sweat, and I'm saying, "What is happening?" I'm like, must be doing something wrong. But I think, learning how to work on those like levels. Like once later, I started getting tired. But I was like, "Oh, I think it's probably because I wasn't breathing right. I wasn't really into it. I was just sort of like rigidly controlling myself." And no, I think that's an interesting dichotomy, sort of between flow and juggling, right? It sort of seems to attract. Usually, I think people oscillate in different ways, right? Like I think, for example, Kevin Axtell, not to throw him under the bus in this way, but he was a juggler. But I think maybe he felt, I don't know, maybe he felt that his creativity was sort of limited by being a juggler in his ability to express himself, and so he sort of moved. I mean, he was always kind of an expressive guy, but I think
I was just about to say that fool has a lot to express.
Yeah, but I mean, like he could be more free and like less of like the constraints of juggling pedagogy and things like that. Okay, let's talk about performance, right? Because if we're talking now, we're kind of moving in that way. So performance is often based. Like the kind of performance you would like to do is probably something where you have a bunch of tricks and they're organized and you have a plan. I also enjoy that, but do you enjoy performing, or do you still like that, or is it just something you're like have to do and it's like gets you all nervous or what?
I think a little bit of everything you just said. I really like performing, and one of my goals coming here to Mexico was to become a better performer. I've always felt really strong and really confident as a teacher, and I know that I'm good at it, but I'm not good at performing like I am at teaching, and I know that. So I came here to work on that, and I definitely feel way more comfortable on a stage. I don't get as nervous as I used to, but I think performers tell you that they're not nervous, I think that's bullshit. Everyone feels some sort of pressure when they're performing. You're about to be very vulnerable in front of people, but you get better at dealing with it. When I was doing the competitions in the IJA and performing with Brian, if I had a bad run, it would ruin my week. It would ruin my next 3 days, like, or whatever it was. And now I don't let that happen as much. I try to find the little gems of places where I can improve and don't take everything so personally. Performance is an extremely vulnerable and personal thing. But when you're putting it out there, you have to look at it more objective and like how you can entertain people and not just like be hurt about not landing a trick or like not having a great run, because it's already out there. The people already have it. You have to make it fun no matter how well you do it. And so that's been a learning curve here. And the performance here is very different. Like when I look at my costume and the music from the performance I did with Mackenzie at IJA, I'm like, oh, that's so fucking boring. It's so boring. Because here people are in glitter, sequins, and hey at the end of every trick, and it's very traditional. But people know exactly when to clap, and people are entertained through these acts. And if you took some of these acts and put them in Toulouse at some of these festivals, people would hate it. But like my goal for performing here is more performing for the public and entertaining the public, and not performing my art for other artists, which is more of what I was doing in the States.
So let's talk about this entitlement thing. I want to poke into this. Like, in what way do you think, the spinning arts community can be more entitled about their opinions or who they are? Just what is the deal with that? You said that a little bit earlier.
Why do I think that the flow arts people are entitled?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest...
This is not a massive generalization, but as a sense, it's not like you think everybody sucks or anything.
More about people who want to teach than people like in the flow art community in general. But because of the way that the festivals are set up in the United States, they bring sometimes up to 40 instructors, and all of those instructors feel like they deserve enough money to get them all the way to the festival. They feel like they deserve meals all through the event, plus money on top, plus recognition from the whatever, just this whole list of things that they feel like that they want. And the way that festivals are set up in the States, we just don't have the money for that. Like the community itself doesn't have money to support events like that. Hooping events are a little different because it's a different demographic of older women who tend to have more stable lifestyles. But in fire drums, for example, most of those people are in their like 20s or 30s, and they're not rich. So the festival itself doesn't have a whole lot of money to invest in what each teacher thinks they're worth. Also, when I look at professional performers and people who are being flown out to some of the bigger like IJA or like the circus festivals in France or things like that, those fools have been performing professionally for 25 years or something like that. They've put so much time and effort. They fucking deserve a hotel that's nice. They deserve to be fed. They deserve money on top of it. But if you've been practicing spinning fans or double hoops in your backyard for 2.5 years, you don't deserve that in my mind. Like, you deserve respect. You deserve respect for the time you've put into it. But to come into it and be hurt that these organizations who are working on a shoestring budget are not giving you enough money to fly you across the country to teach at their event, that they're going to sell out no matter what, that kind of mindset just doesn't sit right with me, and it doesn't allow you to grow as an artist or a person. Like, you have to see where you suck to get better, and you have to see where you have to put in time to earn respect and to earn those things that you want. And so you have to act like you have to fake it till you make it kind of thing, like when I see the people who are given money for events and are asked personally to come out to events, I'm like, okay, those people have put the time in. And like, I still feel completely inadequate when I put myself up against some of these other people that are coming to these events. And I'm still super surprised when events ask Kenzie and I to come out and buy us tickets or whatever it is. It's great. And I love it. But I'm also like, really? Like, you could have these Ukrainian hoop jugglers who've been going to circus school and performing 7 days a week. Right. Like, that's kind of something that I value more than someone who puts out an Instagram video every day or whatever it is, or has 70,000 followers. Like, that doesn't mean anything as far as your worth as a teacher or as a circus artist. And people tend to inflate their own sense of self-worth and feel entitled to these things, and then get angry at the events and looking for places to place blame. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think me and Christina had this interesting conversation the other day. We're sitting down here. There's a New York instructor. I'll just drop her name, Claire Deluxe. And if you've never met her, you should probably, not just for everybody here, I think, she's probably one of the most qualified pointe instructors I've ever met. By 40, right? I mean, she's taught probably close to anywhere between 20 to 200 people a year for the past 11 years in either some flow manipulation thing, and she's not getting invited to events, right? Like, there's another part there where it's, I just think that if they were to have the best teachers, we wouldn't have the most popular people, and I think that also. And I think that's true in the circus world too, right? We don't necessarily bring out, I'm not saying that people that are good at circus can't be good teachers or whatever, but I think if you go to a juggling festival, for example, they don't pay instructors. They hook the performers up a little bit, but that's it, right? Nobody gets paid to teach at a juggling event.
Right.
But the people who you pay to coach you, let's say if you're going circus coach, those people are expensive, right? Like, whether you're going for a flexibility coach, or you're going to go for like a juggling coach, like a Sergei Ignatov's workshop or something like that. So I think that there's like, I can kind of see that there's like this difference there. I mean, I just don't understand how, sometimes in flow events, how money means your value, right? There's an interesting trade-off there, because I think in juggling communities in the States, I don't think money is really necessarily in that equation, except that we would pay a lot of money to see, I don't know, somebody like Michael Motion or Wes Peden do their thing, for 5 minutes.
Right. And those people deserve it. Those people can feel entitled, like when you look at, even, I feel weird saying this, even if you like take Michael Motion's resume and put it up to Wes Peden's, like, it's still like this, you know what I mean?
I mean, Michael Motion's massive. And
yes, like, I don't know, like, and I bet you Wes would be the first person to tell you that, so like, when people can recognize the time that they put in and the things that they've done and what they actually are worth or deserve, which are totally things that each person feels different about, but like, it's really important to be humble and to look at the people who are doing the things you want to do, and look at what they've done to get there and say, have I done that work? Have I put in even a fraction of what they have to feel this way? And it's like, people are allowed to do whatever the way they want, but like, at the end of the day, if it's not serving you and you're ending up like being super toxic to the people around you and the community that you're wanting to be included in anyway, it's just like super counterproductive.
Well, and I think that the flow community likes to say that it admire, I mean, by high skill, right? High skill tends to be the thing that they hope to honor in a lot of ways, even over performance or instruction, in my opinion. If you're like but I think that high skill actually means high creativity in manipulation, which is sort of the funny part about these flow events, in my opinion. I think the more valued stuff is the skill in which you manipulate an object, not how good, and that is like first, and then for some reason it seems like instruction, and at the very bottom rung is performance.
And then under that's moving your feet.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. And I think that that's just like a trade-off that I guess the flow events make, which is cool, because pushing manipulation, which is funny, because I think that's also another reason why juggling and some people, juggler styles never really fully fit into juggling, right? Because the manipulation style is something different, Contact juggling kind of has that. Like, that there's a lot of manipulation techniques that are involved in contact juggling that aren't necessarily juggling, right? And then you get into this like confusing conversation, or somebody that invents a new prop like a freaking triangle with a stick or something, right? Or Michael Motion actually is probably the best example, figuring out how to manipulate said object in interesting way, not being limited to the or Eric Aubrey or whatever, like the shape is irrelevant. Yeah. It's like, or not Sean McKenney, Greg Kennedy or whatever. I think those people, in my opinion, are actually the flow art sort of fathers in a lot of ways, Like, here's a fan. It looks like this. What the heck do you do with this fan to make it interesting, right? Or to move it interestingly in space. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 more questions, or 2 more things. Man. So first off, what's up with all tattoos? You got, what are, show us a tattoo or two. We got some juggling ones here. What's up? You got the leg juggling one. That one you can see on the internet.
So on that, Kenzie has the same one, but
is it on her like Siamese twin leg? So like if you stand next to each other, they're both there, or is it on the? Oh, hey, I didn't know Mackenzie was in there. Hey, Mackenzie, how you doing?
Good. Hi, Noel.
Is Mexico different than Utah?
A little bit.
So wait, your hair doesn't match anymore. What's gonna happen with you two?
I know, right? We need a new logo, is what it is, because our logo has red and blue hair.
I mean, So, well, what's that on your hand? What's this hand stuff? Is that like Mexican metal band, like frickin' dragons and stuff? What we got?
No, this says Cassie. So this is funny because Cassie means almost in Spanish. And so whenever anyone says Cassie something, I'm like immediately turning around thinking they're talking about me, but they're not. So I also, not so much right now, but I write graffiti also. And so this is what I write. I write Cassie Cassie, which means like almost. So that's what this says. And then I have just these little symbols on my hand that are
nice. Wait, do you have the other hand too? So that's a weight.
There's nothing on this hand.
Oh, whoa. Are you going to keep that free?
I don't know.
Is that like the slapping hand?
Sure. I don't know. I would like to get more tattoos, but they're expensive and yeah.
All right.
I'm good for now, but I have a whole leg of Marvel tattoos that I'm super stoked on, and I want to get that finished first.
You know, did you watch the new? We'll talk about the Punisher later. Never mind. Also, hey Kenzie, you in the room still?
Kenzie, are you in the room?
Bring
still?
the dogs for our final scene.
For our final scene, we have to bring the dogs. Okay. Will you open my door? Yeah. Come here, Isis. Come here.
Isis is nice though. I think I've met Isis. Not that your dog is nice, but Isis is like old, so she's chilling, right?
She's a little protective sometimes.
Wait, do they get jealous?
Come on.
Do they get jealous of each other? Like, Kenzie, if you pet Ghost too much, will Isis get mad at you?
Yeah, they get jealous. Ghost seems to be a little more jealous, but...
Wait, I can't see the dogs. What's happening? Oh! Nice. Oh.
They have a good relationship.
So, how do you be a circus? Can you bring it's like Mexico, right? You can straight bring this dog to every gig, right? Sorry, bad stereotype. But like, so how do you go to gigs and tour with these dogs? Do you like trade off babysitting?
Yeah, that's been hard. We've been lucky and had people like stay at the house or watch the dogs when we leave coming up for Europe soon. We haven't exactly figured out what we're gonna do for that 2 weeks, so we're hoping we can just find somebody to stay in our house and take care of our little babies, because that's a challenge.
How much is rent there? How cheap is it over there? I'm sorry, like, it's gotta ask.
In US dollars each, we pay like $230 each.
Are you like in a safe spot? Like, I mean,
yeah. We're in a nice spot. It's like kind of an expensive apartment for where we're at, because we needed to be able to take the dogs out and like feel safe walking around. And when we first moved here, we were in the same colonia, the same like part of town, right? So we already know this area. Our landlord's super nice.
Do you see a lot of Americans down there? Like, do you hang out with Caitlin ever, or any of those?
We see Caitlin sometimes, like once every couple months. Really, she's crazy, but she's awesome. Yeah,
she's awesome.
Like, so fun. She's so fun. She's super, super fun. There's certain zones of the city and parts of the city that you'll go that you'll be like, wait, what? Am I in Mexico anymore? People are speaking hella English. But where we are, not so much.
Oh, okay. Well, with that, Double McJuggle, I'm going to end. You both can stay online for a minute. Actually, you know what? Before you go, Kenzie, what's up with the kendama? Tell us. Are you leaving Hoop for kendama? Are you going to turn into a Lucas adverse?
Here we go. Let's talk about it. No, well, the guy I'm dating now, my boyfriend, is super into kendama and super good at it, and like that's, you know how that goes. So, it's super fun. I love having something in my hands all the time. Like sometimes I'm socially awkward and don't like to talk to people, so sometimes I think I learned that maybe from my ex-boyfriend. I don't know.
But so it's cool to have like a prop that's just small that I can take anywhere and play with, and I think it's super fun. So
and she's really good at practicing things. So whatever she wants to be good at, she's good at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun, and I'm not sure where I'm going with it, but
well, that's cool. Well, kendama also, I've noticed while holding a kendama, people don't want to talk to me.
Yeah, they're like, this fucking guy.
Hey, what is this lame thing this person's doing? He's already lamer than everybody.
Like bouncing up and down. What are you doing?
Yeah. No, I'm actually. So you two stick on the line. Cassie, get back in here. This is Sticks Out podcast number 12. I've recorded 12 now. Season 1 has finished.
Hey, 12 is my lucky number. My birthday's the 12th.
Oh, nice. And so I just want to say thank you both and Cassie for being here. Do you really like the Giants or you just like the logo? Quick.
No, I just like San Francisco.
Oh, okay. All right. And with that, thank you so much, Cassie. Take care. I'm going to stop this. You two stay on and stop recording.